Wyoming lost a favored son on May 10th. Greg Schaefer of Gillette was a former employee of Arch Coal and a well-liked legislative lobbyist. He was also an untiring promoter of the Cowboy State and the University of Wyoming. He served as a UW trustee. Cowboy State Daily reached out to some of his longtime friends and colleagues. Wendy Lowe remembers Greg as a stand-up guy.
Greg was just a dear friend. He was always a champion of not only the coal industry, which he worked in, but the energy business. And he really set the tone for how you lobby in Wyoming. He was very gracious, very kind, considerate, vocal, opinionated, always, stated his mind. But he was a very fair-minded individual.
Marion Loomis was executive director of the Wyoming Mining Association for many years before he retired in 2014. He knew Greg well and says Greg had a great sense of humor.
He was just fun to be around, and people liked to be around him. He was an avid Wyoming fan. I mean, Wyoming football and basketball, but a Wyoming fan. He was a real cheerleader for the state of Wyoming wherever he went.
Jonathan Downing was also a lobbyist for years. He says Greg took his time to get to know people and was a mentor to many.
No matter what type of challenging issue might come up, even if it didn't involve mining, he was always one of those advocates for Wyoming and trying to make it better in the various ways that you could, as well as the various positions that people would be in. And so that was my first introduction to Greg Schaefer. The funny part was later on did not realize how long of a relationship that would be over the years.
In another life, Cheyenne Mayor Marian Orr, well, she too was a lobbyist. She first met Greg while working for the late Craig Thomas, and then worked alongside Greg at the Wyoming legislature for many years.
But then I had an opportunity in my early 20s, one of my first jobs, after working for Craig as a lobbyist, and I was one of the few females. I was in my 20s, and he could have, he could have been chauvinistic. He could have been not helpful, condescending, and he was anything but. He was always just so generous and so open and so respectful. Consummate gentleman.
Rest in peace, Greg. You're in a league of your own. Robert Chiha, Cowboy State Daily.